All right, we'll go ahead and begin. Thank you again for joining us today. We're very excited to have you with us for this informational session about the Edith and Peter O'Donnell Awards. This is a flagship program for our organization, TAMIST, and we're really excited to share with you some more insight and information about the nomination process and selection process. My name is Terrence Henry. I'm the Executive Director of TAMIST. That stands for the Academy of Medicine, Engineering, and Science of Texas. And we really appreciate the time and effort that goes into preparing the nominations for the O'Donnell Awards. So we hope this session provides information that will help you in creating a successful nomination. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about our organization, TAMIST. We support collaboration to advance research, innovation, and business and human talent development in the state of Texas. We're composed of more than 320 Texas-based members of the three national academies: the National Academy of Medicine, the National Academy of Engineering, and National Academy of Sciences, as well as our state's 11 Nobel laureates and several of the Royal Academies from the UK. Today, we have two members of our O'Donnell Awards committee to share with you some more information and insight about the awards. First is Anne Salamone, chairman of the board of Rochal Industries. She'll be giving you some history and background on the awards program. She is a member of the National Academy of Engineering. Also joining us today is Bonnie Bartel, the Ralph and Dorothy Looney Professor of Biochemistry and Cell Biology in the Department of Biosciences at Rice University. Bonnie Bartel serves on the Science Subcommittee and will discuss what the committee looks for in a successful application. And she is a member of the National Academy of Sciences. Then we will hear from Christine McCoy, our TAMIST Director of Development, who oversees the O'Donnell Awards program at the staff level. She will review the nomination guidelines and eligibility requirements before we open up the webinar to questions from you, the audience. So for those questions, at any time during the session, if you have a question, you can use the Q&A box, which is in that bar on your Zoom window, to type in your question anytime during the presentation, and then we'll start going over those during the Q&A segment towards the end of the session. We'll also have a process for you to raise your hand and ask a question, and Christine will go over that during her remarks. So without any further ado, we will turn it over to Anne Salamone, the chair of the awards committee, to tell us more about the awards process. Anne, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Terrence, and thank you to the audience today who have an interest in nominating a rising Texas researcher for this important award. Next slide, please. The Edith and Peter O'Donnell Awards annually recognize rising Texas researchers who are addressing the essential role that science and technology play in society, and whose work meets the highest standards of exemplary performance and creativity and resourcefulness. The awards are named in honor of Edith and Peter O'Donnell, who have been steadfast supporters of TAMIST since its inception, and who are strong advocates for education and research. The O'Donnell Awards were established in 2006 to acknowledge outstanding achievement by Texas researchers in 4 categories: medicine, engineering, science, and technology innovation. The Technology Innovation Award was added in 2008 to recognize individuals and research teams from non-academic institutions, in other words, industry, who've made a major innovative technological discovery, which has a potential for having a profound effect on society, positive effect. To date, there have been 63 recipients of the O'Donnell Awards, 15 of whom have become members of one of the national academies. Next, yes, thank you. Recipients of the awards receive a medal with a distinctive design on it for their field, meaning science, engineering, medicine, or technology innovation. They also receive a $25,000 honorarium and an invitation to present at the annual conference of TAMIST. In this coming year, also before I say that, the awards are presented at the second evening of the TAMIST Annual Award Conference. The and that's done at the O'Donnell Award dinner. The next TAMIS annual conference will be in January 2022, January 11th through the 13th. And I'm very happy to say that it'll be in San Antonio, Texas at the Westin Riverwalk Hotel. There are 4 awards given annually in medicine, engineering, science, and then in technology innovation. The science category rotates every other year between biology and physical sciences. For this particular sequence, physical sciences is the focus for the 2022 awards. So for awards to be made within the Science O'Donnell Awards Committee nominations, they should be in the physical sciences. Nominations for medicine, engineering, and science come from academic institutions, and nominations for technology innovation come from industry or from research organizations such as the Southwest Research Institute that's in San Antonio. Next slide. The awards committee is composed of a committee chair, which is myself this year, and 12 TAMIST members, each serving a 3-year term. There are 4 subcommittees for medicine, engineering, science, and technology innovation. The subcommittees select finalists to advance to the external review stage, which means for medicine, engineering, and science, the nominations from those subcommittees are then sent to individuals who are outside of the state of Texas that are national members of one of the, of either the a national organization for medicine, engineering, or science, and then the national academies. And then those recommendations are added to the subcommittee nominations. For the technology innovation nominations, there are site visits that are made to the companies to further elucidate the contributions of the nominees. When the finalists are selected from the selection committee, award selection committee, they are then forwarded to the TAMIS Nobel Laureates Committee. The Nobel laureates then review and make their own judgments on the nominations, and those that they approve are then sent to the TAMIS Board of Directors, who make the final selection and approval for the O'Donnell Awards nominations. I'd now like to have Bonnie Bartel discuss the subcommittees and what they are looking for successful nomination packages. Bonnie.
Thank you, Anne. So I'm Bonnie Bartel from Rice University, and I want to go through a little bit of what the subcommittees are looking for. So you'll see this slide again later, but I want to highlight a few things here. So the 2 statements, the 250-word statement and the 50-word summaries, are both really important to the committee. As you might imagine, the subcommittees have very diverse expertise, and some of the committee members are reading nominations that are well outside of their area of their own research. So it's worth spending some time on those summaries, being both concise and also very clear about what the contributions have been of your nominee and writing them for a broad audience. We also look very closely at the CV. We look at the papers, productivity since starting the independent position, funding, journals where the papers have published. We don't necessarily count publications per se, but we're looking for quality. One measure of that quality can be the H factor, because the number of citations can be a reflection of the breadth of the nominee's contributions. But of course, this is going to vary among fields. We look very closely at those 5 publications. It's most useful if those publications are from primary research articles and not review articles. And there should be some concordance between those publications and those 250-word statements. So we're looking for the publications that underlie the contributions that are really notable from the nominee. And of course, the 3 letters of support are key to putting those contributions in context. So those should be people, of course, not from the nominee's institution, but people who know the work and its significance well. So the committee does do a lot of homework to try to get a good picture of the candidates' contributions. We might call colleagues in the field and ask about what they think of the impact. We might read review articles to see how this work has been put in context by others. So just a few general comments. So the awards are really merit-based. We're not looking at which institution won last year and eliminating nominees from that school. And similarly, we don't rule out research areas based on what was awarded the previous year, the exception being the science subcommittee, which alternates, of course, between biological and physical sciences. But the subdiscipline doesn't change based on what who won the previous year. And a very minor part of the evaluation might be that if there are two really equally matched candidates, we might look at who has more remaining eligibility before they age out of the process. So we're looking for really substantial contributions as an independent investigator. And so nominees who have only very recently become independent investigators are less likely to be competitive. So with that, I'll be answering questions later. So now I'll hand it back to Anne to talk about the special considerations for the Technology Innovation Award.
Thank you, Bonnie. Okay, so for the Technology Innovation Award, it is quite different from the Science, Medicine, and Engineering Awards in that the nominations come from industry. The nominees are all from industry or from the research institutions, again, like the Southwest Research Institute or Texas Biomedical Research Institute in San Antonio. The key differentiator is that typically individuals in industry are not well known. They are not well published. So the primary emphasis is coming from those that know them within their industry, within their own company, and as well as within their own industry. Also, you might note in the nomination package that for science, medicine, engineering, the awardees must have been in their field post-graduating from school for, I think it's 15 years or less. For technology innovation, it's 25 years or less. And that is in strong recognition that most individuals that are in industry are behind the curtains, if you will, to the knowledge of other people being aware of them outside of their own company. What we're looking for within technology innovation is that the nominees have had an actual strong input in the innovation and then implementation of their science and or technology that's been developed into a commercial product. And that commercial product has to be demonstrating initial success, if not full success, in the field that they work in. So key is that they are a key innovator, that it is an innovative solution that will have a profound effect on society, and is an indication of fields that technology innovation awardees have, or nominees really. We've had ecology, medical devices, pharmaceuticals, of course, automotive, oil and gas, and even traffic flow and parking garage systems. So the field is wide open in technology innovation, and the key points are that the individuals that are nominated are the key innovators and the key drivers then for commercial success of the product. It must be a product that's on the market. Okay, so with that, I'll turn the program back to Christine McCoy to talk to us about the details. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Anne. My name is Christine McCoy, and I'm the Director of Development here at TAMIST, and I'm going to go through some of the requirements and guidelines for the nomination process. So the nomination guidelines and eligibility requirements differ between the Medicine, Engineering, and Science Awards, as Anne and Bonnie have talked about, and the Technology Innovation Award. For the Medicine, Engineering, and Science Awards, the nomination guidelines include Nominators must choose only one category, medicine, engineering, or science, to designate their nominee. For the renomination of candidates from previous years, all nominees will be automatically renominated for the following 2 years after the initial nomination, if the nominee meets all eligibility requirements. If a nominator would like to withdraw a nominee, they may contact the TAMIST office. And I will note that this is a new process for this year. Research teams may be nominated in any category. Each team member receives a citation and a medal, and the honorarium is divided evenly among the team. For the nominator requirements, TAMIST members, past O'Donnell Awards recipients, university presidents, chancellors, deans, provosts, and vice presidents for research are eligible to nominate. So for the eligibility requirements, they include the following criteria. Nominees must be within 15 years of their first faculty appointment at the time the awards are given. Nominees must have spent the past 2 years performing research in Texas. For team nominations, all team members must meet the award eligibility requirements, and TAMIST members are not eligible. So for the required application materials, they must contain a nominee application form, nominator statements that include a 250-word statement and a 50-word summary, a nominee biographical sketch and research bibliography, and a list of 5 of the most important research publications with a link to an electronic PDF version of each research publication, and then 3 letters of support. So the technology and innovation guidelines and requirements are a little different. And those include nominators may only choose the technology innovation category for this award. All nominees will be automatically renominated for the following 2 years after the initial nomination if the nominee meets all eligibility requirements. And again, if a nominator would like to withdraw a nominee, they may contact the TAMIST office. Research teams, for research teams, they may be nominated. However, there must be one individual of the team that has functioned as the driving force or leader of the group that created the innovation. For the nominator requirements, TAMIST members, past O'Donnell Awards recipients, industry executives, administrators, managers and supervisors, university presidents, chancellors, provosts, deans, and vice presidents for research are eligible to nominate. The eligibility requirements include the following. Nominees must be within 25 years from their first full-time industry affiliated position at the time the awards are given. Nominees must have been continually employed in the state of Texas for the past 2 years, and TAMIST members are not eligible. For the required application materials for the Technology Innovation Award, they must contain nominee application form, the nominator statements, the 250-word statement and the 50-word summary, nominee biographical sketch, and a list of the 5 most important research publications, industrial reports, patents, and/or descriptions of contributions to company innovations as attested by company executives, and 3 letters of support as well. So this next slide, just to give you an idea of the awards timeline. We open the call for nominations in February. April 30th is always the deadline. It doesn't matter what year it is. April 30th is the deadline to submit your nominations. In May, each subcommittee, and we have 4, each subcommittee reviews and discusses the nominations in their category and determines the candidates to move forward to the next step of review. In June, the full awards committee discusses the candidates to move forward to the next step of review, and top candidates' nomination materials for medicine, engineering, and science are submitted to external reviewers for ranking and comments. For technology innovation, site visits are conducted by the Technology Innovation Subcommittee in lieu of the external review step. In July, or this year will be in August, it's usually a late July or early August, the full awards committee meets to discuss the external reviewers' input and make final recommendations for the award finalists. In August, the finalists are submitted to the Nobel Laureate Committee for their review and approval. And in September, finalists are submitted to the TAMIS Board of Directors for final approval. So there's a lot of steps here. In October, awards recipients are notified along with their nominators. And nominators of candidates who were not selected will be notified at this time as well. So for more information, you can find that on the TAMIS website, including nomination guides, eligibility requirements, application forms, and frequently asked questions. And they are accessible at tamis.org/O'Donnell-awards. So now we'll begin the Q&A portion of today's session. And as a reminder, you may type your question using the Q&A box found at the bottom of the Zoom screen. And we'll begin answering questions that were previously submitted. But if you would like to ask a verbal question, please raise your hand, use the raise your hand function, and we'll unmute you so that you can ask your question.
Okay, so Christine, we do have a question, and the question is there an opportunity to submit updates after the April 30th submission date? My nominee has a major paper in revision at a top journal that will likely be accepted shortly after the deadline.
Sure, that's a good question. So there is a few days grace period after the April 30th deadline, and that's really for me to make sure that I have all of the different components of each application, each nomination portfolio. And so that does take me a few days, but pretty soon after that, I am starting to upload these for our subcommittee to review. And because we have to stick with our timelines to make sure that we meet all of our dates that were in that timeline slide that I showed. However, if you do send me something after April 30th and after I've posted everything for the subcommittees to review, I will accept those and I will alert the subcommittee that new documents have been uploaded to this person's file.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any other questions in the Q&A at this time, but I'm going to ask, okay, here's one. And that is there a difference if recommendation letters come from the US, Texas, Europe? And that's Christine.
Sure, there's not a difference. Typically, the letters of recommendation, we've had it from all over the world. Typically, it's best if it's from outside your institution, but that could still be in Texas, and it could be absolutely in the U.S. And then we've had a lot of papers from or letters of support from all over the world. So there's not one that's better than the other.
Thank you, Christine. And now, Bonnie, there's a question for you. It says you mentioned that this year will be focused on physical sciences, correct? What about biophysics?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think biophysics is definitely considered as part of biosciences. So we do consider biophysics applications during the biosciences year. And so you can certainly submit, but it's likely that that there might be more physical sciences that are that rise to the top. But there's no reason not to submit because it'll then be in consideration for future years. I would also just say that if you're a biosciences kind of nominator, you might also, sometimes there's some overlap between biosciences and medicine. So this is the year to really consider whether there's actually some medical focus of your applicant so that they don't have to sit out for a year.
So we do have one person who would like to ask a verbal question, and thank you everyone for submitting these questions. We hope you'll continue to send them in through the Q&A box. So Maria Luisa Picard Ami has raised her hand. I'm going to unmute you and you can ask your question, and then we'll answer it.
I was typing it. Thank you very much. I just was a little confused with the idea that the nominee for 1 year carries on to the next year. Is that starting this year for next year, or is that last year's nominees are considered this year?
Sure, it's very new, and it officially starts this year going forward, but we're taking last year's nominees and putting them into this year's. And then going forward, it will be a process that we will do every year. So if you're nominated last year, you will go into this year and next year. And if you're nominated this year, you will go into the following 2 years.
So if we nominated, I'm an ORSP, so if we nominated people for last year, we would not make new nominations this year? The ones we can, but we don't have to.
Correct. You can
Okay.
absolutely nominate additional people, but if you don't have additional people to nominate, we would use both.
Oh, we can nominate 2 for each category then?
You can nominate as many as you like from your institution. There's not a limit per category per institution.
Okay, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Maria and Louisa, this is Anne. I'd also like to respond to your question, and that is, if you make a nomination this year and your nominee, for instance, is not selected as the final awardee, next year and the following year, you can also update that nomination and add more information to it, or make it so that you believe that it's going to be a stronger nomination, and resubmit that nomination. So it won't, that is something that I personally have done, and it's in past years, and that helps too with the nomination. So even though it automatically carries forward for 2 years, you can strengthen it, the nomination.
That's a good point, Anne. Thank you for saying that too. And if there's additional items for a candidate that is being renominated, absolutely. If there's an award that was won, or they've gone into they have a different title or different papers that they would like to submit, absolutely, we would take those.
Okay,
We also,
go ahead.
apologies, we have one question from the chat in addition to the Q&A box. So I'll just verbally pass that along to y'all. It's from Jing Cheng Du. And the question is, the nominee is from the College of Engineering. Should the nomination go to the engineering category, or can it be sent to the science category as well?
I would say if they're from the College of Engineering, but their research is science-based and it's specifically this year for physical, put it in the science category. I will also say too, if the subcommittee is reviewing the nominations and they feel that this candidate would fit better in a different subcommittee under a different discipline, they will move it to that to the different subcommittee, to a different category.
Okay, so we have several additional questions now in the Q&A. So I think we answered Oliveira's and Drusi's question. If someone's nominated this year for physical sciences, are they automatically renominated in the 2 years from now? And now I'm going to add to that. So if they're nominated for physical sciences, are they put in the pile for the following year in biological sciences, or are they given 2 shots at physical sciences?
They're given, that's why we've done it for the 2 years, because they would not be as eligible. If, okay, say they were biological last year, this year the focus is physical. So they would go into the following year as long as they were still eligible, that they still fit into the 15 years from their first faculty appointment. Now, if for some reason they could go into a different category that I believe Bonnie mentioned, or maybe it was Anne, if they kind of straddle into bioengineering or biosciences, I would absolutely, I'm sorry, biomedicine, I would absolutely go into the medical or the engineering.
Mhm.
And we will be reaching out to, because this is the first year, we will reach out to make sure to each person that was nominated last year to make sure that they are in the right spot for this year. It's the first year we're doing this, so it's a little confusing, but it's going to just take a little while for us to work through this. Next year will be a lot easier.
Thank you. Okay, and so Bonnie, the question is, what can you share on what makes the strongest application? And if you can address that for science, medicine, and engineering, and then I'll take it for technology innovation.
Well, I think the strongest applications are really amazing scientists or engineers or medicine. So they've made substantial contributions that change the way we think about the field. And so it's really the nominee more than the nominee shines through the nomination, right? So I don't think there's anything you can do with a nomination that would make a subpar nominee rise to the top. So it's really what you're working with. But they have the strongest nominees have really field-changing contributions to their research area.
Okay, and then to add on to that for technology innovation, I'm going to say that term you just used of field changing is an important attribute for Technology Innovation Award as well. That the individuals that are being submitted or the teams that are being submitted for the Technology Innovation Award have to be keenly innovative, keenly resourceful, keenly persistent to get something that is industry changing, which is difficult in its own right because of the inertia problems within creating new products. So the strongest applications within technology innovation indicate a person that is brilliant and persistent and able to communicate well in order to get product out to the marketplace. It is a game changer within their industry. So the last question is from Asher's Partouche, and it says, in the case of resubmission from last year, how many updates can be made to the material from the original submission? And so you can completely rewrite the submission if you want to. And I would highly recommend that there be an emphasis on innovation and impact to the field that you're in. And in this particular case, because I happen to know your submission last year was from industry, that it very much focused on the impact of society. Let me see.
Thank you, Anne. We have raised hands. I believe the question is also in the Q&A, but I'm going to unmute the participant. It's Marlon Scully from Texas A&M. And you can verbally ask your question if you'd like. I think you just need to unmute on your side.
Well, can you hear me?
Great. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't see the option here on my screen. Yeah, we have an excellent professor. He's an associate research professor here in the physics department. Is that eligible for the O'Donnell, or does it have to be an academic teaching professorship?
So can you talk about the research professor? And I'd have to see the CV to kind of get an idea, but the difference in that in a faculty member.
So I think the question is, does it have to be a tenure track professor? Or can it be a non-tenure track professor? And I think the answer is it does not have to be.
It does not have to be, as long as they fit into the 15 years from the first faculty appointment.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, and Peter Lehman has asked, have you thought about what would be the focus of science next year and the year after. And Bonnie, you can elaborate on this, but again, for this year, it's a physical science area. And then for next year, it'll be a biological science area. Bonnie, do you have other things to add to that?
That's right. It just is alternating between biological sciences and physical sciences every other year. So that is known, yes.
Okay, Terrence, I'm not seeing any other questions in chat or Q&A. Do you have others that are coming in live?
Not at this time. So if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to either type your question in the Q&A box, or you can raise your hand and we will unmute you to ask your question verbally. All right, fresh question.
Okay. So that we can get a better sense of what qualifies as biological versus physical, can you tell us how long they've been alternated, how many years that those two choices have been available? Christine or Terrence?
I would say at least, I can't give you the exact date off the top of my head. I'd have to go back in there and look, but not in my head, but in files. At least 10 years. So it's been a long time that we've been doing this.
That is a good question. However, because of the strong intersection now between chemistry and biology and physics.
Yeah, there's intersections between all of these categories, right? And so the medicine and biology overlap, the physical and engineering overlap. So you have to make your best guess. And if the subcommittee disagrees, as Christine says, we sometimes move things around if there's a better fit.
And I think you're muted.
Okay, Terrence, I don't believe we have more questions. So would you like to provide some final messaging for us?
Sure, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these were wonderful questions, and we really appreciate everyone being here and asking your questions. If you have a question that comes up later, we'll have some contact info for you in just a moment. You'll also get a follow-up email from us for this session that will have some additional information on how you can reach out to us. So as we went over, the call for nominations is now open. The deadline is April 30th. We really look forward to receiving nominations from you, and hope that you've learned a little bit more about the process today that will help you in your nominations. So we're going to have the slides and video of today's session up on our website. You will get a link to those in a follow-up email tomorrow. And we'll also have in that email contact info for Christine McCoy, our staff lead for the O'Donnell Awards. If you have additional questions or anything you want to reach out to her about the awards, we'd encourage you to. After this session concludes, you'll see a survey pop up. We'd love to get your feedback on this session. This is the second year we have done this informational session about the O'Donnell Awards, and we'd like to continue doing them each year. So if you have any feedback that could help us improve this session, we'd love to hear it. And as again, a reminder that deadline is April 30th. We really look forward to seeing the candidates this year. And I'd like to take a moment and thank Ann Salamone and Bonnie Bartel from our selection committee for taking the time to go over the awards today. And especially thank Christine McCoy for all that you do for this important program. As I said, it's considered a flagship of what we do at TAMIST, and we think a really important way to recognize the next generation of researchers in Texas. So thank you again for joining us. We hope all of you will stay safe and be well, and we'll at some point soon get to see you in person. And thank you again. We'll now conclude the session for today. Have a great day.